Starting with yourself and the way you eat is the surest way to find health and longevity. And when you really start to think about nutrition, it all comes back to healthy soil. So that's why he's going to start there. Drake recently demonstrated the rejuvenating power of natural farming in downtown Hilo by growing over 200 pounds of collo and 200 pounds of sweet potatoes in a previously poisoned 20 by 100-foot triangle median with the total cost of fertilizer materials less than $10. Yeah! So I know you can all agree that trying to make fertilizer and keeping the cost low is a huge part of trying to localize our food system. When we talk about a local food system, how we manage our waste and whether it gets turned into fertilizer is a critical part of the food system. And, you know, as you guys know, even sometimes locally grown food, you buy food that's locally grown, but, you know, how local is your local? Because if, you know, 100% of the fertilizer that comes in to grow your local food comes in on the barge, well, that's not very sustainable over the long haul or economically viable for our communities. So
I got a sweet presentation that I hope Andrea can record from the email that I sent to her. Internet here.
Yeah, sure. You sent me a PDF. Is that what you want to use?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right.
And so my name's Drake. I was born and raised on the Big Island of Hawaii. Lived here for 20-something years. It's a great place, and I really love it. And I went and I got a degree in computer science, but then after learning all about the intricacies of technologies, I see how often it just kind of messes up our lives when it's trying to make things easier and better. And I kind of sobered up a little bit and decided to go into farming, which when I've never seen two bikes make a tricycle, but I've seen two horses to get together and make a pony. And so nature is always kind of on our team, making things better for us and doing great things. So I got into natural farming, which is kind of a mystical version of what Leon was talking about. They're doing very scientific, looking at the biology, identifying individual, what is the true biology happening there. Whereas my approach to it is that we know there's biology there. When we get our microbes up to a certain population, you can actually see them visually with your eyes. You know they are there. The process of fermentation, which is basically controlled rotting, is the interaction of microbes transforming matter into a different state. And so I wanted to give you guys something you can take home to really help your soil, which is feeding your plants directly with this fermented plant juice, which is a liquid fertilizer that you can make, and it really helps. The soil is a tricky thing. There's so many different biologies and different things going on there that this is a really simple way that you can kind of add more food to your system, and that natural biology that's there is going to thrive. It's like giving a bunch of people a lot of building material. Like odds are, if you give them a bunch of building material, they're going to build something pretty cool. You're not guaranteed that. That's why there's always going back to the soil biology and ensuring that your right builders are at your location before you give them the building material is a good idea. But just in this brief talk today, I'd like to give you the building material that you can give to your plants. And I made a ferment the other day. I made this on Wednesday or Thursday. Can't remember. I knew I had a talk coming up, and I was like, I better make it so it's ready when I give the talk. But this is what I made here. And this is called fermented plant juice. This method here I learned from Master Cho and Korean natural farming. And it's a way to take the essence of the plant out and put it into a liquid form so that we can reapply it to other plants. So as opposed to trying to go through the compost and get a bunch of complex biology to work together, this is kind of a very direct way that I know the plant material in here had nutrients, and I know that when I mix it with sugar, that I can extract those out. They'll come through the cell wall and into this liquid here. So if you see kind of what's going on here in this jar, this is a couple days old. It's ready to be poured off. And what I have is the comfrey plant. Is everyone familiar with comfrey? Okay, it's a very medicinal plant, has a lot of allotonin in it, which is good for healing, and it's just overall very vibrant. When I plant it in my soil, it's one of the first things to grow really robustly, and I use it as kind of a weed barrier around, so I have a lot of it on hand already. So I'm taking something that, I'm growing on my farm and just simply cutting the growing tips, and I'll go, you got that?
1 second.
Well, I'll go over it again when we have the presentation up, but basically taking the growing tips of the plant, mixing them with sugar, and getting it so that brown sugar will cause osmotic pressure, and so without breaking the cell wall, I can draw the nutrients that are inside of the plant cells across the cell boundary. And so by taking plant material and loaming it in brown sugar, it will actually pull it across, and you see this liquid down here at the bottom. This liquid came out of the leaves. So without pulverizing it, without physically trying to beat it out of the plant, just the brown sugar drew this liquid across. And it's this liquid that we're going to use here. This is our final product that we're after. And I'm just going to pour this. Well, is this place like somewhat easy to clean? Because I just have sugar and it's somewhat sticky. Yeah, sure.
Do you want me to?
I'm used to doing these demos in a barn.
Do you want me to? We can set this table up for you.
As long as you can wash the tablecloth, I think we're all good.
What do you think?
Take it off. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Well, actually, I have a mixing bowl and things here.
Okay, well, why don't we just take a minute? Can I have a volunteer to clear off this table and just put this stuff in some piles, and then we'll do this now.
Well, it's sticky.
And then take the table off.
So, yeah, perfect. I'm gonna use this here.
And the tablecloth off too?
Yeah. Keep it all good. We'll go over the method on that. I'm gonna show you the extraction process here on the batch that I already have done, and then we'll go over how I made this. Okay. So basically, the easiest way I found to apply this, like a lot of people when we talk about the natural farming things, like we learn a lot of these recipes, but then people get home and they're like, okay, I made this, now what do I do with it? And I found by far the easiest thing to do with this particular product here is to put it in one of these things, which is a pesticide sprayer. Dial and spray.
Garden sprayer.
Weed killer, insect killer, fertilizers, and fungicides is what they advertise here. We're going to do the exact opposite of that, but their material still works great. And so, beautiful. Okay.
See that the tree helped you.
Okay. Okay. So let me see,
You can do whatever you want.
I'll stay with the presentation. Let me make a quick jump here, okay? So, why would I make this? Like, why would I go through the trouble of 15 minutes to make this? And the reason is because the primary thing is that this is adding food to the system, like I started talking about it. It's really like, if you have food, good things start with food. You know, you have a party and you don't have food, like people are like, but you have a bunch of food, they're like, oh, great party, thanks. So it all starts there. And this will really enhance any situation unless you already have rampant pests. Like, if you have a huge pest problem already, you don't want to use this because you're going to add a bunch of fuel to that fire. But in almost any situation, this will work. This fermented plant juice is considered like a complete fertilizer because it's coming through the cell wall. It doesn't just have NPK or whatever nutrient you can slice and dice. It has complex hormones and enzymes and different things that are triggering the plant to grow. And you get it from the growing tips of your plant. So whatever's making your plant, like this comfrey plant here, whatever hormones and enzymes and nutrients and minerals that were making this grow, I harvest those and then I extract them just out. So they're in that pure form, the same form I took them from, I'm going to reapply. So it's a complete fertilizer. It's by far one of the easiest things in natural farming to make. Almost everyone's successful with this. You get immediate results when you use it. You can see it definitely within a week, but this supposedly will happen within half hour. Because they're all water soluble, the plant can only accept water soluble nutrients, and since it's already in that form, potentially it can start acting on the plant almost immediately. You don't have to wait days. You can just see, you have a pest problem this morning, you can use it today, and it'll take action. And you can customize this really easily to suit your plants. So if you're growing, like I was just talking about lychees on the way over here, and you can make this one specifically from lychees and then apply it back to your lychee tree, and then it's going to have even more of those nutrients and things that are making it powerful and making it lychee in there. If you're growing tomatoes, you can take the tomato trimmings when you're trimming them and make the same fermented plant juice. And if you feed it back to its own plant, it's really a powerful way of feeding things. But you can also go and grab really good plants. Like I chose this comfrey. I'm not going to spray it back on my comfrey specifically, but I just happen to know it's good. So, but you can make these very customized for whatever you have around and whatever you want to use.
What do you exactly mean by plant?
I'll get to that.
So you mix them up, like, say you have tomatoes and you put comfrey on that?
It's best to do one ferment by itself at a time. And so here, this is the recipe. This is the optimal recipe, and by far, like the Rolls Royce of recipes going at it. A lot of people ask me, yeah, but can I? And yeah, you can. You can make any substitution you want. Like, do it. But if you're still doing natural farming at the end, we'll see by your results that you get. Because you have to have that feedback loop coming through. And in fact, I'm going to make a substitution here while I'm making it today. So I'll explain that when I do it. But what I'm talking about is the growing tips that you want to gather. And you want to gather them, it says up here, before the morning dew evaporates. And so why would I be that mystical to say before the morning dew? It's because the morning dew, when the sun gets up to a certain height in the sky, or when the earth rotates to a certain degree, the plant is then being hit by more UV light. And these hormones and enzymes and the whole complete fertilizer we want are very subtle, fragile components of the plant. And so when the sun is up full day, it pulls those components down into the trunk and the core of the plant, and they're much harder to get at. But in the very early morning, they're still out in the tips. And so if you go out and you gather the growing tips, which are basically the leaves that are not participating in photosynthesis. So you'll see they're still kind of immature looking. They're not as mature as the rest of the plant. And optimally, you gather a bunch of those. This morning when I went out with the comfrey, I kind of just grabbed some and just took most of the inner growing tips, but some more mature leaves as well. So optimally that. And you want to gather enough to make what we're doing here, and you'll kind of get an idea. Like basically I have half a 5-gallon bucket full of leaf matter, which is going to be way too much to do this half-gallon jar. But I like to do about this size at a time, especially for a home garden. It's like gather a 5-gallon bucket size. So you don't need a ton of that material, you just need enough to pack in here. So I'll go through this process here. So pretend I just went out and gathered this and it was early in the morning and I got all this leaf matter here. What I'm going to do is take it and rip it into just handful sizes just so I can kind of manipulate it a little bit here. And I'm not really trying to pulverize it or anything. Just going through.
These leaves don't necessarily represent growing tips.
The comfrey plant, actually the more mature leaves happen to be the more potent leaves on a comfrey plant. So it's kind of reverse of what I was saying for just this plant specifically. But usually it would be your growing tips. And again, this is like the optimal recipe. I only had a few minutes this morning. I went to the market and then all this other stuff.
I have lots of this Cuban oregano out here.
Yeah.
Use that and use the growing tips?
Yeah, oregano is going to be a very potent one because it's an herb. So any herb type of thing is going to be very strong. So you want to be careful using something that's that aromatic on different crops. Mm-hmm. So comfrey is real general here, and it can go on anything. But if you're going to use like that, most likely you'd want to go back on like oregano type of things. But a great candidate here that I saw as I was walking up is sweet potato. Okay. Sweet potato tips. Sweet potato is very vigorous, makes amazing potent fermented plant juice. And so then the next thing up here, it says loamy with 1/2 to 2/3 by weight brown sugar. Brown sugar is being used because of that osmotic reaction. It's really nice to use it that way. I, on the other hand, I'm going to use cane juice. And let me tell you about that.
Sorry, behind this. Yeah, he has the brown sugar, but we don't have any. I have molasses.
Molasses. Well, yeah. So, what this is going to do is there's too much moisture in this. Mm-hmm. See how liquidy it is already? Mm-hmm. You don't want all this liquid. What's going to happen is it's going to get not nearly as good as using just the brown sugar. This same type of liquid would come out as you loamy it to get the osmotic pressure. But what's going to happen in this reaction is not as much osmotic pressure is going to come across, but the microorganisms that start to ferment in here will create a vinegar which will draw the nutrients across because they'll be water soluble with that acetic acid, which is vinegar.
What is coconut sugar?
Like I said, any substitutions you're welcome to try.
I just think that they have it.
Yeah. Oh, right now?
Yeah. It's granulated coconut sugar.
Nah. Yeah. This will work. So what I'm going to do here is just add about 1/2 of this into here, and the sugar is going to stimulate all the microorganisms that are already on these leaves. So I didn't wash it. I didn't do anything like that. I just left and there's natural yeast on there, which are going to do their thing.
So if you're going to, do it, you should spray it back onto your own plants, because those are your indigenous microorganisms. It would be better to do it on your own plants.
Wait, phrase that again.
Say if I did it for my tomatoes.
Yeah.
I would spray it on my tomatoes, not go 2 miles down and give it to my...
This here with these microorganisms that I'm talking about, and I'm going to loamy this while I'm talking, but and the basic idea is I'm just trying to smash it so I get the sugar well coated into here. But this fermented plant juice, we're not so much worried about the microorganisms. They're doing the action of the fermentation, but they're not actually I'm not spraying this on for that purpose. So lot more dramatic with brown sugar because as I start to work it at a certain point, the cell walls actually osmotically release the liquid across the boundary. And of this liquid that I'm adding in, it's actually being all absorbed up right now.
Fermented vegetable fat,
And that's
with salt, not with sugar.
yeah, and with salt, primarily what you're getting is a lactobacillus on there, I think, to do majority of food fermentation. And this is more of a yeast that'll eat the sugars. Yeast love sugar. So it does take a few minutes to kind of get it in, but amazingly, this absorbed all that sugar. Okay. And so once you get it nice and mixed, then the key is just to take a jar. I tend to like just these mason jars. My hands fit inside. They're nice. Yeah, you pack it 2/3 full. The reason, if in natural farming and in life in general, you'll find the 1/3, 2/3 ratio pretty prevalent. It's the golden ratio between there, and it has to do with microcosm, macrocosm.
If you want to do it, I'll do it this one.
Sure, I'll put that there. And so you want to save 1/3 of your space for the vital elements, which there's a lot more mysticism to this. And
But you're really packing it.
yeah, and I'm packing it in there tight to get it so I'm getting majority of the air space out, or all the bubbles out, and really packing this in there. Let's see here.
Is it important that it's black?
The Koreans use clay jars, which are optimal because the fermentation process with clay enables the air to go through the clay. Glass is probably your second best choice, and then maybe plastic. I don't know about wood fermentation vessel like this. That's up to whatever you got around. I would think if you didn't glaze it, it might leak at some point.
It would leak.
Good. And and then I'm gonna let this ferment for 3 to 7 days. And if you're curious, like what does it mean when it ferments? It's liquid at the bottom after we pour it off. You can come by, smell it, sample it, taste it. It's really delicious. Really delicious.
So does it still taste all sweet from sugar?
Yeah. And all these things are highly sugary and highly edible. And that's probably only half. So I got a great tactic for, if you want to know something's 2/3, you just ask yourself, is it more than half? You can say yes. Is it less than 3/4? If you can still say yes, then you got 1/3, 2/3. You need a little bit more into that. But after are there any questions up till this point of packing this into the jar here, kind of mixing it with the sugar, getting that osmotic pressure to go across?
When you're putting the layers using the brown sugar, do the layer of vegetables and then put the layer of brown sugar?
No, you still want to loamy this in, and you take your brown sugar. In some of the natural farming manuals, they talk about layering it. But I found that layering it doesn't work because it doesn't put the pressure against the leaf matter and it doesn't do its same thing. So you're better off to kind of loamy it together and get it a little bit better mixed. In fact, if you do put brown sugar onto your leaf matter and you work it for about 5 minutes or so, that you'll get liquid. You'll be able to squeeze it and liquid will come out. And it's from that osmotic pressure. And that's true with majority of plants that you try. If you try something super dry, it may not work, but. The sugar cane juice? No.
The concrete dried out and cold.
Yeah, right. No, well, if you find brown sugar, it would be, it happen.
Do you want the?
Yeah, perfect.
Where do you get the brown sugar?
Brown sugar you get from 20-pound bags is an affordable way to get it. Typically, I just go buy 2-pound bags though, because one of these jars here takes a little less than a pound to make this jar. A half-gallon jar, you need about a pound of sugar. So you don't need a whole lot. You can go buy maybe like 2 or 3 pounds of sugar and go home and make 2 or 3 different ones of these.
Would that soft brown sugar, like ground up to refine?
Yeah, the CNH brown sugar is probably one of the better ones out there. If you get the ones that are crystal, and seriously on this, just go buy the brown sugar, the CNH one. Like, a lot of people ask me about different types of sugars that are like organic and like different this and that, and they just don't have the same osmotic pressure for this optimal recipe. But like I said, I'm using cane juice here right now, so if you don't follow the optimal recipe, then mine just won't be as potent as this. And I really recommend you go the right way and you do it the potent way, like this one is done properly here. And look how much juice I got that's usable out of this, and I know this one's going to be kind, and I can eat it, and it's going to be just really healthy, right for my plants.
So if this is brown sugar, and you were doing the prep, would you take the juice that was already forming and put it in as well?
And pour the excess juice on. Just kind of like when you do a food ferment and you cover, you put that little extra to cover your spout. Same deal. I have. But for the downtown project, no. What did I use? Probably Hono grass. Because I was doing a bunch of Hono grass at that time. And that one, you can also mirror those characteristics. So Hono grass is pretty vigorous, pretty much drought tolerant. So I'm taking those attributes of Hono grass and crossing them over. It's kind of a mystical idea, but so yeah, it's a really good use for it.
Will it kill it during the process?
Yeah, it will.
Well, it depends how you harvest, I guess, right? You can kill it.
Ideally, if you do it, it's going to suck serum out of it, and you're going to just have the cell structure done.
The stuff that you pour off after, it's dead. But are you talking about killing the clump that you're just harvesting?
It'll definitely get.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you suck the life force out of it.
So would you take the seeds of a grass?
No, the seeds aren't the best. Okay, so I would say this fulfills my requirements of being at the right height, 2/3 in there. Then what I do is I take a rag, where'd my rag go? I had one.
Brown rag?
No, it's a really dirty looking anyway.
Maybe it's outside.
It's all good. But a rag, I put it under there and I put this lid over and it just seals it.
Whoever has the dog and the children is needed outside.
Okay, so is everyone so far with me up to this point? It's just to cover it. So I'm going to put a breathable lid over this. And then I'm going to set this in a cool, dark spot to ferment for 3 to 7 days. But you can see at 3 days here, it's pretty much done with fermentation. That I found that everything here, because of our temperatures and everything, will ferment really quickly.
tell it's fermented by the color?
Yeah, the color, it's changed dramatically. Also, there's a sweeter smell to it. It doesn't just smell like plant material and sugar combined. It smells like something different. And it depends on what material you use on what that smell actually is. But it's obviously gone through a transformation. So I seal this up, I put it in my room, and then 3 days later I come back and it looks like this. Okay, time warp there.
Now you seal it up or you
Just cover it with a breathable lid.
Just want to keep the cockroaches and rats out.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it does have some effect of keeping the air in that 1/3 space. The microbes signal each other with chemicals through the air, and so it changes how they do their deal. But then you can pour this off in here. And so I'm going to pour it just into my ortho sprayer here, but pour it into anything. Like I usually use glass jars to store it, but if you see,
How long can you store it?
but it'll pour off pretty decently. If you want to store it for a long period of time, like any longer than a week, I recommend you mix it 1-to-1 with sugar, with brown sugar. And that's a lot of brown sugar, but at that point, it'll be 100% shelf stable. The thing won't go vinegarized. It'll just be doing its thing. Yeah, that definitely worked. So, how to use this. My favorite way to use it is this sprayer I've just discovered. I used to do it other bunch of different ways, but by putting it into this sprayer, you can get it into a 1 to 500 dilution. So this stuff, it goes a really long way. Like if you make 1 gallon, you can potentially make 500 gallons of fertilizer.
1 to 500 is about roughly 2 teaspoons per gallon. It's actually 8 milliliters per gallon. It's 500.
Yeah.
1,000 is 4 milliliters per gallon.
And the typical way I do it is I put 1 ounce into in a 5-gallon bucket. I'll fill the 5-gallon bucket up to 4 gallons, and I'll take 1 ounce and mix that in. And then I mix like a 4-gallon tank, and then I'll put it into the sprayer or do some other ways. Ideally, you want to spray with the finest mitt, because this is you're feeding the plant directly. Which I'll go for this one. Oh, there's containers in the back. Cool. Yeah, perfect. Pour some in this cup. And
Any kind of sprayer? Like a little mist sprayer?
yeah. Backpack sprayer if you got a big orchard. Little mist sprayer if you just got a hand garden. Depends on how much you want to get out there. And to pour this off, don't try and wring it out. Just turn it upside down and leave it upside down, or put it through a filter somehow and let it filter out for about 4 hours or so, and a bunch more will come out of here. I'll probably get about 2 or 3 times this volume that's in there right now out of this. But it is edible if anyone wants a drink. Oh, it's fabulous. So,
Joe has this thing, he says you shouldn't give your plants anything you wouldn't take yourself. He has a really tremendous respect for plants as a life force.
and so I recommend out here too, since you guys are already doing a bunch of irrigation, put it in your irrigation lines. If you're going to do any, like you have a system set up for that, really good way to get it out. You can use it. Their typical recommendation is during the vegetative growth and up until it starts flowering, is that you can use it weekly. I've talked to people about overdosing it, and there's a story about a guy who left someone in charge of his farm, and he left for a month, And the guy thought it was every day, not once a week. And he did it every day, and the only problem was that their fruit was too big, so they couldn't sell it. So this stuff is very potent that way.
Now, are you spraying this onto the leaves, not the trunk or the root or the ground?
This is beneficial in all situations. So primarily I wanted to talk to you today about spraying it onto the leaves and foliar, so that way you don't have to go with a chemical fertilizer to the soil. But if you spray this onto your soil, it's also going to encourage the biology that's in your soil to, as you add more food, and as Leon said, the good guys win. When you give the good guys good food, then they're going to start to kind of take it up a notch in your soil naturally. So it's an all-around spray. Like, the more you sprench and drench this out, it will just recover.
What about us coming around to the sugar can?
In a dilution of 1 to 500, you're not going to have an ant problem like that. If you make a stronger dilution, you may. Like I said, the only time not to use this is when you already have a pest problem. So if you're already susceptible to pests, that means you need to work on your soil foundation, because your plants are stressed. So once you got your soil foundation together, then you can come back with this and feed your plants.
So we're like about 5 minutes from asking those?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Exactly. So the plants to ferment, I use comfrey hono grass. The Koreans recommend mugwort, which is an ancient like witch's brew type of plant. It's completely yang, which is an interesting aspect. And they also use dropwort, which is similar to parsley. It's Japanese dryland watercress, but it's a huge accumulator of a lot of trace nutrients. So when you ferment these out, all those things that have accumulated are now in your juice. And so these are the ones you want to look for to accumulate. And also, if you're growing flowers, banana flowers, like this ferment here that I'm making, is a really good thing during the flowering stage to give it that. Because when you get this out of the plant tips, we want our plant to grow. But if you get this same ferment and you get it from the flowers, then it'll trigger your plant to flower more.
Are you talking about those buds that's down at the end of the...
Banana flower, yes.
All the way at the end?
Yep. And I made that here. It's a really good, nice, kind of reminds, like a iced tea almost. Reminds me of when you make that.
Can you accelerate the maturation of fruit and everything to speed up that time?
No, speeding up is it comes like grass grows during spring type of idea. You can't necessarily speed it up. What you can do is you can make it bigger and better. There is a way using seawater to make your fruit ripen a week to 2 weeks earlier, but it's not using this process here. This is mostly to add robustness, food to your plants. So that's pretty much all I have. Are there any questions on? Yes.
So you said before at the beginning about lychee. You're talking about lychee leaves or like the actual fruit?
We made it from the fruits. You can use the same process with the fruits.
And then you amplify it with the juice fruit.
Yep.
So,
Yes. Oh.
I was just gonna say, you said, like, the oregano would make it too potent. Is there any time you would want to use that?
Oregano to be too potent. Like you wanna
Trying to get rid of all that oregano and some good that.
Well,
Because you have a lot.
No, I'm just curious, because you said it was potent, so I'm trying to figure out,
Well, it has that strong aromatic thing to it, which like typically when you're making ferments, like citrus stays only with citrus, pineapple only with pineapple, because those have that bite to it. It's that extra bit that other plants are more neutral in a way. And so anything that's like herby like that. Like if you made a ferment out of rosemary or something, it'd be very, very strong. Like this, you can smell it and it'd be no problem. But the rosemary one, you'd be like, oh, what is this? And so you want to keep it within their energy levels.
Yeah, so use it for herbs.
Yeah.
A lot of herbs.
Yeah.
What about the citrus that you use the fruit, like you choose the peel to make that, or just the leaves on the tree?
So that's a fermented fruit juice from citrus, and you use the citrus fruits themselves, and the peel and everything. Just cut it, mix it with the sugar, between half and 2/3 of its weight.
Do you ever use a part formulator to check your output of your fermentation? When you're spraying, you ever check that solution rate to see if it's the same every time?
No. I kind of ride like a Wild West guy, shoot from the hip. You could get really precise into it. Master Cho, you know when I said that 1 to 500 and how precise you have to be to that? Master Cho typically varies between 1 to 500 and 1 to 1,000. And he'll come and he's been using this stuff for a long time, and he'll come and he'll tell you, oh, 1 to 800 with this, 1 to 500 with this, 1 to 400 with this, of his different inputs. So he is very precise, and if you drill down that precision, I imagine you'd cause even less stress to your plants, and they'd reach even higher potential. But in my case, I'm dealing with a lot of other damaged things, so that I figure a little bit of shotgun here is like,
Your roots and tubers, like you gave the same way, like if you wanted lots of sweet potato, would you chop up the sweet potato and put it in there, or?
So with a sweet potato, when the sweet potato is first growing, you make it from the leaves to start, and then after it's flowering and you know it's setting fruit, then you spray it with a ferment made from its roots.
From its roots?
Yeah, so, and that would be high in phosphorus. It would really go into the roots and be good.
Thanks, Rick. Who's staying for the movie? How many of you are staying for the movie? Okay, folks. Okay, so we'll just take a quick, 3-minute transition zone. Those of you who aren't staying for the movie, if you want to continue to chat and connect, if you can go outside, and then we can start the movie so we don't run over time.
And if there's anyone who hasn't signed in, I'd appreciate it if you sign up here.
Thanks for coming. Thank you, Andrea. I'll put it in perspective. Yeah. It's Holly. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I fill this to the 4-gallon mark, and then I pour it.
I think we're going to do a shift on maybe or heat, so I'll send you an email. We're going to get back in the groove, dancing groove.
Yeah, okay, I'm so sorry, but when you have to leave on Saturday, we're going to have it. So, start from 9, just have
The water's coming through.
That's unfortunate, but I'm going to try to make it Friday night.
Well, we're done for the phone now.
But I don't know that it really when I've been making it for show, it's always been you fill your water to its correct thing, then you add your thing, so it's like that higher ratio versus.
Well, you can borrow it if you
So you
want.
don't know, I've got one.
Either from me or it's actually at the library.
water in
At the library.
Any other one? Yeah, you can set.
Yeah.
Sam Kohala donated it
If I
to the
want to get
library.
it on the 500, then I just on the 10, and then I run it.
Hour and 10 minutes.
One piece. You look at one piece.
I'm going to start at 5
Yeah.
maybe. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you know about whey?
Way, a lot of way. It's the right way.
Cool. And still add sugar?
Oh, it's great. I think you can get sugar.
Okay.
All right.
That's great.